Okay, all right. Well, welcome and happy Monday. Um, okay, today I want to introduce Git. Git. Anybody already have a GitHub? Oh, a lot of you. Okay, all right. Well, then all of this will be review. But for those of you who haven't, and everybody else, I'm gonna force you guys to learn Git and GitHub. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, so Git is what we call a version control system, and basically what it does is it creates little kind of snapshots in history. Well, you create the snapshots, okay? But basically, every kind of change that you make along the way, those are tracked. And if you need to, you can always roll back to an earlier version. It also is a good system for you to kind of collaborate with other people, and you can kind of keep track of who made what change and who did this and do that. Okay. Um, you know, you're probably familiar a little bit already if you've ever used like Google Docs. You have like kind of the version history, and you can kind of go back and see what you've written. And as things have changed, you can kind of do that, right? And but Google Docs does it all automatically for you. Git is like you have to do everything yourself. You have to kind of you deliberately make changes, and you say, I want to record, you know, a commit at this point in time. Okay. There are different interfaces for which you can use to interact with Git. Okay, and uh, I learned the terminal. Okay, and so I'm going to teach you how to interact with Git from the terminal. There's now kind of like a point and click graphic user interface that you can use to do Git, and um, it's good. Okay, but the thing is with a terminal is you can always kind of um, like remote into a system, and you'll always have access to the terminal. So sometimes you have to use Git on like a different, like a not your local computer, but a computer on your company's network or something, and then the way you connect is via SSH, and then you'll have a terminal, and you'll have to use the terminal. So I think it's still good to learn and understand all the terminal commands, and the only difference really is you just type out the commands versus if you have a point and click interface. Basically, there's buttons that correspond to add and things like that. Okay, and so the way Git works is you create what's called a repository. It's basically just a folder, okay, a folder or directory on your system, and then everything that you put into that folder or directory, you keep track of all of the changes. Okay, so you add a file, you keep track of that change. You make changes to a particular file, you keep track of that change. Okay, and as you're doing this, you can check on the status. Okay, and you type in git status, and it will say, hey, these files have been changed, or these files have been added, or actually, there's no changes since the last time you took a snapshot, things like that. Okay, and then as you work, let's say you add a few lines to a document inside your folder, okay, um, and you save it, okay. It will say, hey, this file has changed, okay, and then you say, okay, well, I want to create a snapshot here, and then to do that, you say, I want to add this file that has changed, or you can say, I want to add all of the changes in this directory, like if you changed multiple files, and then you kind of etch that change like in the commit history by creating a commit. Okay, and this is like an official kind of location in time, I guess, that you can revert back to. Okay, it's kind of like creating, like if uh, um, I don't know, you play a video game, right? You create these different save states that you can kind of go back to, right before the big boss battle. You create a save state, and then like, let's say things go poorly, you can always kind of load back and try again or something, right? I don't know, maybe that's cheating, but you know, stuff like that, right? And sometimes but the thing with the video game is like often there's only like one active save state, and so like if you do a thing and it's like you accidentally create a save state, and then you're like stuck in this junk situation, right? But anyway, this is what we have. So when you are working with Git, okay, you're gonna have kind of your local working directory. This is what's on your computer, okay? And you are going to kind of declare things as a repository. I guess maybe I need to back up. And I guess part of me is assuming you guys are familiar with the file directory structure within your computer, but maybe you're not. Okay, so on your computer, you have a whole bunch of different files, right? You have documents and you have pictures and you have all of this stuff, and your computer generally organizes them into full files and folders. You can kind of think of like an old-fashioned filing cabinet. You have like drawers. You pull out the drawer, you have different files, file folders in there, and within each folder you have different pieces of paper in there. Okay, and so you might have a folder that says like these are you might have like a big folder for like, this is my work from 2023, okay? And then within that, you'll say, all right, this is the folder that corresponds to, I don't know, chemistry class. And this is a folder that corresponds to, or I don't know, within that, you might have a folder that says, this was fall quarter, okay? And then within fall quarter, you have more folders that says, this was chemistry class, and this was, stats 20 or whatever it was, okay? And then within that, you have your papers and your documents and things like that, okay? There's one folder on your computer that probably has a bajillion things in it, and that's probably your downloads folder, okay? And it just kind of over time just accumulates a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so my recommendation is start creating folders. If you're not already creating folders, start creating folders and using folders. And then when you create folders, don't put spaces in your folder names, okay? Use an underscore or a dash or a hyphen, okay? Don't put spaces, because it just makes everything in the command line much more complicated. But yeah, you got so yeah, two folders that are definitely abused are your downloads folder and your desktop. So if you have like a bajillion icons in your desktop, okay, start organizing them in folders, okay? And if you got a bajillion things in your downloads, start organizing them in your folder. At least create a folder somewhere in documents or something in your home directory. Put it, have one for the class. Within that, have homework in it and things like that. Okay, but anyway, you have these folders, and then you'll make it either a Git repository, or you clone a Git repository onto your computer, and that creates a folder. And basically, as you work in it, you stage your changes, okay? And then you commit your changes, okay? So there's two steps, all right? There's a staging, that's done with using git add, and then there's a committing, and this creates an actual point in time that you can revert back to, okay? And so you stage the commit changes you want with git add, and then you commit those changes with git commit, okay? And anytime you make a commit, you have to add a little description, okay? And so you type git commit -m for a little message or a memo, and then you put in a little description of what that change is. And so there's always this question like, why do we have two separate things? Okay, why do I have to do git add and git commit? Why can't I just say, okay, changes have been made, let's commit these changes. Okay, more changes have been made, let's commit these changes, okay? The reason why is because when you check your commit history, okay, all of your commits should be incremental, small changes that you can kind of isolate, and you can kind of undo either the change in one file or something else at a time. Again, kind of using the video game analogy, let's say you have these different save states where you can kind of go back in time in your video game. But if you're playing some kind of game, you might have done something that you liked, like you got a new weapon that you're really happy about, but at the same time, something bad happened during the game, right? Like from the last save state, like your companion got killed or something, right? And so there's a hesitancy where, do I make this commit and both of these things are now part of the save state? It would be nice if you can kind of separate the two different things, right? And so as you're kind of working, okay, it would be nice if, like, the way our brains worked was this always nice, logical, incremental thing. But that's not often how our workflow works, right? So oftentimes as we're working, we'll work on several files at the same time. And rather than just committing all of the changes all at once, with git add, you can say, hey, I want to create a commit for just this particular file and this particular file. And then I want to create a different commit for this file. And that way, if you need to kind of go back in time or recall a file from a certain commit, you can kind of go back to that particular thing. Okay, so you can, as you're working, you can add and commit things separately. Okay. If you do need to go back in time, okay, and restore a previous version of a file, first you'll want to look up in your timeline or your git log basically all of the different changes, okay? And you'll want to say, okay, this is the moment in time that I want to revert back to, okay? So it's kind of like a time machine, and you say, and there's kind of like different points in time that you can jump back into, and so you check the log, and it lists all of the commits, and so you read the little descriptions, and this description says, hey, we updated this particular file, or another description says, hey, you added this feature or something like that. And you say, oh yeah, that was where everything went wrong. Okay, so I want to go back in time to that point in thing. All right, so you go to the git log. It has what's called a hash. Okay, it's got like this big long, I don't know, 60 character, 40 character, big long thing. You just have to kind of use the first few letters of that hash. Okay, and then and you'll say, hey, I want to kind of go into my time machine, and this is called git checkout. Okay, and you type in the thing, and you type the file that you want to kind of get from that moment in time. Okay. All right. This is a whole lot of stuff. I'll demo all of this in a moment here. Okay. And then you can always kind of look at all of the changes that are going that happened in a particular commit. So you can kind of also just you have kind of the log of all of the different changes that you have, and if you want to kind of just take kind of a preview of what's in there, you can click git show. You type in the name of the first few characters of the hash, and it will say, hey, this is the file that got changed. All right, so there was something called filename.txt. All right, and you have A and B. So this is like the before and the after. Okay, and it will say, changes happened at this line, and then any lines that were added will show up in green. Any lines that were deleted will show up in red. Okay, I know it's kind of hard to read on the screen here. And then anything that wasn't changed will just will remain in white. Okay, and so we'll do this. Okay, so and then the other part is we want to use GitHub. Okay, so GitHub is not the same exact thing as Git. Okay, GitHub is a company, and it hosts what we call remote repositories using Git. Okay, so it's a company. It's now owned by Microsoft, but there's a bunch of companies that do this kind of service. There's GitLab, there's Bitbucket, and whatnot. But GitHub is probably the most popular one. A whole bunch of projects are hosted on GitHub, and it's a platform that you can use to share like projects that you've worked on, and especially when you're applying for jobs and internships. Something that can kind of make you stand out is having some quality projects on GitHub, right? I know the whole internship job thing is this big demoralizing process where you're applying to thousands of places, but one thing that can help, I think, make you stand out is having some quality projects on GitHub that you can share. Okay, you don't need to use GitHub to host a remote repository. Like, you can set up your own computer that you can kind of remote into and stuff, but GitHub certainly makes it easy. Okay, and there's a few different ways to use GitHub. One is you can create a Git repository on your local computer and then send it up to GitHub. But I would say the easiest way is to create the repository on GitHub first and then bring it to your local computer. Okay. Now, in order to do this, you have to first create an account on GitHub, and then you have to authorize your local computer to interact with your GitHub account. Okay, you have to give it permissions. Okay, you don't want random people messing with your stuff on GitHub. Okay, certainly a lot of companies have like their important software and whatnot. They don't want random people messing with it, so everybody has to be authorized in order to interact with their particular Git repositories. So I'm going to walk you through getting GitHub set up. I'll walk you through setting up a repository, getting it set up on your computer, and then we'll do a few things to interact with this. Okay. I'm also going to assign a homework assignment on DataCamp that walks through Git, just so there's extra practice. Okay. All right. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to GitHub and create an account. Okay. And so for the purpose of this class, I have two separate GitHub accounts. Okay. This is my regular account. Okay. My username is Smiles Chen, and this is where I, as a professor, will post stuff, and I'm going to put basically all of my class notes in our class repository. Okay. At the same time, I have a second account that I made on GitHub, and this represents me pretending to be a student. Okay. Just so that so if you're going to follow along, you'll follow along basically like what I'm doing in the student account. So this is me. This is a picture when I was 20. Okay, I know I look like I'm 13, but that's just me. Okay. All right. So this is Miles Chen, student. This is me pretending to be a student, and so I've created an account. So what you need to do is you need to go to GitHub, you need to create an account, okay? And it will look probably like this. It'll say like, oh, you don't have any repositories yet, or maybe you do, okay? And what you'll want to do in order to get your computer to talk to your GitHub account is you have to go to your account profile, okay? So there'll be a little icon in the upper right-hand corner, and you're gonna go to settings. Okay, and under settings, you're going to want to add SSH keys. Okay, SSH and GPG key. So on the left-hand side, you want to create a key, an SSH key, and we're going to add an SSH key. And basically, an SSH key is a way, is kind of like you get a key on your computer, and when you ask it to interact with GitHub, GitHub's going to ask for the key. It's going to check, it matches, and say, okay, you are authorized to make changes to your GitHub account. Okay, so so this is how you do it. So first you create an account on GitHub. We're going to create an SSH key on our local computer. We're going to take that SSH key and copy it or add it to our GitHub account. Okay, and then so that authorizes our computer. Then we're going to create a repository on GitHub and bring it down to our machine. So here is some documentation on how to do this, but basically the important key command is we are going to use the SSH keygen command. Okay, so okay, if you are on a Unix based system, so that is Mac OS and Linux, you can just type this straight into a terminal. So you open up like, I don't know, hit command space to bring up Spotlight, type in terminal, okay, and then the terminal will pop up, and then you can just start entering this command directly in there. Okay, if you are on Windows, okay, so because Mac OS already comes with Git and already installed. I think Linux does too. If you're on Windows, you'll need to install Git. So maybe I need to back up for a second. And so on Windows, you're going to type in Git just into the browser. You're going to go to Git SCM. You'll click download for Windows. You don't have to follow along, okay, right now. And then you'll just download the appropriate, what do you call it, folder or file. So if you're on most computers will probably be x64, like an Intel or AMD chip. But if you have like an ARM chip, so I don't know, I think like the latest Surface Pro or something uses an ARM chip. There's a handful of these things, okay? And basically, if it doesn't work, then you'll switch over to the ARM, okay? So you'll download that, and then you can open up, it will install something called Git Bash, okay? So Git Bash, it will be a terminal window that where you can type in this kind of stuff as well. Okay, so this is Git Bash, but I don't. But I'm going to do it over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an SSH key for my account. So my student account. The email address I use is mileschen@ucla.edu. So what I'm going to type is at the terminal window, I'm going to type ssh-keygen-t, and this ED25519, this is the cryptographic system, okay, -C, and then type in the email address that you used to create your GitHub account. Okay, you don't again, you don't have to do this right now, but for me, I've created an account with mileschen@ucla.edu. Okay, and so I do that. Okay, and it's going to say it's generating a public and private key pair. Enter the file in which to save the key, and it says this is the default location, home, under, it'll probably be your username. Miles.ssh is the folder, the SSH folder, and then it has a folder for this 25519 ID here. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and hit enter. I guess I already have a key there. So I'll just overwrite it. Yes. Okay. And then it says enter a passphrase. I recommend leaving this blank. Okay. I recommend leaving this blank because if it's not blank, you have to type in the passphrase every single time you do anything with Git, and it gets annoying. Okay. If you're on like a publicly shared thing, publicly shared computer, all right, create a passphrase. But hopefully you have a password on your computer and the only person that uses your computer is you, okay? So if that's the case, leave this blank. Empty for no passphrase, I'm leaving it empty. I'm gonna hit enter the same passphrase again, I'm leaving it empty, okay? So this is under the assumption that you have control of your own laptop. And if it were to get stolen, somebody won't be able to just open up your laptop and just have free reign to your entire computer, right? You have at least some form of ID, maybe Face ID, maybe a PIN code or something to at least get into your computer in the first place. All right, so anyway, this has created an SSH key on my thing, okay? So it says the key fingerprint is blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what this random art is, but it's a thing that it does. Okay, and then now we are going to change directories into my SSH folder. So I'm going to do cd space.ssh to change directories into there. And if I type in ls to list off the things, there will probably be two keys or two files. Maybe you'll have known hosts, but I've got two files here. And one is going to be id-ed255.pub. This is the public key. Okay, there's a public and a private key pair. And so what you have to do is you copy the contents of the public key, and we're going to add it to our GitHub account. Okay, so in Bash, I can just type cat. This will output the stuff from this thing, and I'm going to type in. Whoa, I don't know what just happened there. Okay, I'm going to type in the pub, and this is my public key. All right, it starts off with SSH ed25519. It has all of this gibberish here, and then my email address that's associated with my account. This is my public key. All right, so I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to copy it. Probably Control C on your thing, or you right click on your mouse. And then I come over to my GitHub account, and I'm going to add a new SSH key. Okay. Do you need me to slow down, or are we going okay? I don't know. All right. So I'm going to click new SSH key. I'm going to come over to the key over here. I'm going to hit paste. All right. And so this public key, which was right here, I've just copied and pasted it into GitHub. And here, the title that you want to use for this is the name, like whatever you call your computer. Okay. So this is actually my Surface Laptop Linux virtual machine. Okay. But just so that you can keep track, because the idea is perhaps you work on multiple computers. You have your own laptop, maybe you have a work computer or something, and if you want your work computer to interact with your GitHub, you need to have an SSH key there. And so you'll need to give names for all of the different computers so that you have an idea of which key corresponds to which machine. Okay, so I'm going to click Add SSH key. Okay, and so now it lists off the authentication key here. Okay. All right, so again, the process is you need to open up your terminal, you run this SSH keygen business with the email address associated with your GitHub account. It's got to match exactly. Then you go into the .ssh and you find the .public. Okay, this is the actual secret key, and then this is the public key. So I'm not worried about the public key being out there, because this is like, I mean, that's probably not great, but this is the public key. Okay, whereas you need to have the contents of this part, the secret key here, and if you have the contents of the secret key, then you have access to my account. But that's, I haven't actually shown you. You have a question? Yes. If you don't have an SSH key connected to your account, then the only way you can make changes to GitHub is by going to the website. And then you have to, yeah, you do it in your computer directory, and basically it streamlines the process. And if you have to interact with everything through the website, then there's this then your computer and the website are not necessarily synced up, because like I don't know, like if you have you technically don't even have a repository on your thing. You just have a folder, and you're just like dragging and dropping changes and committing those on the website. So basically, the idea is you want to have the folder on the GitHub site synchronized with the folder on your computer. Okay, and to make sure that it's you and your computer and not some random stranger who's trying to mess up your stuff, you have to have this SSH key, which says, yes, this is a trusted computer and it belongs to the account owner. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So locate, so locate the SSH thing. Okay. You can also just copy it straight to your clipboard by doing this, and this will take the contents of the public key and put it into your clipboard. I just did it by typing out cat, and that displays it on the screen, and I just highlighted and I just copied it. Okay, and then again, you go to your GitHub account, and in your GitHub account, in your settings, SSH and GPG keys, add a new SSH key, copy and paste it in there, and then save it. Okay. All right. So far, all we've done is we've just put a key on my local computer, and I added the key to my GitHub account. And so now when my local computer tries to talk to GitHub, GitHub will say, ah, yes, I trust you, and you can make changes. Oh, let me give you, I'll go ahead and give you your first two view quiz answers today, okay? Which are the letters E and A. E as an elephant is your first answer, and A as an apple is your second view quiz answer. So E and A. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create a repository and start working with it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my GitHub thing, and it says I got no repositories. I'm going to click over here to repository, and let's make a new one. Okay, so we're going to come over here. I'm logged into my account. I'm going to click new, and I guess I'll call this one demo repository, demo repo. Okay, this is what we'll call it. And this, I'll just say this is a demonstration repository for class. All right, and sure. Add a README. Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and add a README. Okay, and basically a README is it's just a file that whenever you go to a repository and it has information about the repository, it's just using the README. Okay, so we're going to create a new repository. I put in just an arbitrary description. I add a README. You can add other stuff, but this is fine. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click create a repository. And so this has now created a repository on my GitHub account. Okay, and right now the only contents in there is a README file. And if we look at the README file, the contents just says this is a demonstration repository for a class, and you can actually click it, and this is that's the file. Okay, so and it says one commit. This is basically the timeline of what has happened in our repository. Nothing, just has the initial commit. Okay, what I want to do is this repository exists on GitHub, and I want to bring this repository down to my local computer. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click this green button that says code, and you have a few options for clone. Okay, we're going to use the SSH clone. Okay, there's HTTPS clone, and this requires it authenticates using your computer browser, it works, but we went through the trouble of setting up an SSH key. So we're going to come over to and click the SSH button, and then I'm going to copy this. It says copy the URL to the clipboard, and this is the address corresponding to this particular repository. Okay. All right. And then so I'm going to come back to my local computer, and this is very important. I'm going to clone my repository, but right now, if you look at my terminal window, it says my location is the .ssh folder, okay? If I type in git clone right now, it's going to clone the repository into my SSH folder, which we do not want to do, okay? So always check where you're located on the terminal. It's going to show right here. And so I want to just go to my home directory, okay? Home directory is your tilde, okay? So you type in cd space tilde, okay? And that will take me to the home directory, okay? And right now my home directory is empty. If I type in ls, there's nothing in there. If you type in ls in your home directory, there's probably things like documents, desktop downloads, and things like that. This is a Linux virtual machine, so I have none of that stuff. But if you're in your home directory, you probably have something like that. So pick a location where you want to clone your GitHub repository. You can put it directly in your home directory. If you want to put it on your desktop, you can do that. You'll just cd into desktop, okay? Or if you want to do it, sorry, okay. If you want to do it somewhere else, okay, wherever you want, okay? But what I want to do is I want to clone it. I'm going to just clone it straight into my home directory. So again, make sure you're in your home directory, not SSH or something like that. And this is just done by typing in git clone, and then I'm going to right click to paste git at github.com, basically the address that I copied from this code block here, okay? And then I'm going to hit enter. And when I do this, because I had the SSH key set up, it's going to clone the repository down here, right? And then so now if I say, hey, what's inside my home directory, I'm going to type in ls. It's going to say, hey, look, demo repo is now there, okay? And so we have demo repo. Okay, so that's that. And I can go into demo repo. I can type in cd demo repo. Okay, and so now I'm inside the demo repo folder. It says your location is ~demo repo. I can type in ls and see what's inside demo repo. And I got readme.md. Okay. All right, so let's say we want to make some changes here. Okay. So I'm going to open up a text editor. There's there's kind of a text editor called Nano. Okay, and I'm going to type in readme.md. This is the file I want to edit. Okay. And so this opens it up, okay? And right now the text just says demo repo. This is a demonstration repository for my class. And then, I don't know, this is markdown, so I can just say, all right, let's add a headline. And here's a, all right, welcome to Stats 21. Let's add some stuff to the readme file. Okay, so I just added some stuff here. I'm going to save it. Nano is weird, and to save it, you hit Control-O. So I'm going to type in Control-O. The file I'm going to write is readme.md. I'm going to hit Enter. So I have saved it. Okay, and now I'm going to exit Nano by hitting Control-X to exit. Control-X on here. Okay. And if I can look at what's in my folder, ls is this. Now, this is a Git repository, so I can type in git status. And it's going to say, we have modified the readme.md file. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to commit these changes. Okay, it says no changes added to commit. It gives you some good hints. It says first use git add and or git commit. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to git add, and we're going to add the readme file. Your terminal probably has tab completion. You don't have to type out capital readme every single time. Once you start a file, so I'm going to type in capital R for readme, and I'm going to just hit tab, and it types the rest of the file name. If you have multiple files that start with R, you can keep hitting the tab, and it's going to cycle through all of the names that start with R. And if you got too many files that start with R, you can type in READ, and it's going to cycle through all of the names that start with READ. Yeah, question? Missed when I added what? The tagline? Oh, like when I edited the file? So I'm just using the terminal-based text editor. Okay, so I typed in Nano. Nano is a terminal-based text editor. I'm gonna do Nano readme. This is the stuff here, and then to save in Nano, it's Control O instead of Control S, but it's Control O, and then to exit Nano, it's Control X. So Control O to save, Control X, oops, to exit. Okay, and then all right, so that's that. I did git status. It says readme has been changed, so we're going to add that change. I'm going to do git add readme. Okay, and now if I type in git status, it's going to say, hey, this has been modified and it is ready to be committed. Okay, changes to be committed. And if I don't want these, okay, I can unstage this or something, right? But I do want to commit these changes. So I'm going to type in git commit. I'm going to commit the change. So I'm going to type git commit -m for a message. And I'm going to say, hey, modified the readme file. Okay. And I'm going to hit enter. All right. And so this has now edited the readme, and I can type in git status. Okay. And it says on branch main, your branch is ahead of origin main by 1 commit. Use git push to publish your local commits. And then, but it says locally speaking, there's nothing to commit, working tree clean. So it says, okay, you have the server GitHub, you have your local repository. We have committed changes to this repository. So now we are like one step ahead in time over here. And what we want is we want to synchronize basically the server's GitHub repository to match ours. And so that's what it's saying. It says your branch is ahead by 1 commit. And if you want to publish these, you use git push. So we're going to just type in git push. Okay. So all of the messages that GitHub types out, like when you type git status, there's often, it's generally helpful. So all you have to do is you type git push. And again, because we have the SSH key established on our computer, we have permission to publish these changes. Okay. And because this is the first time, I don't know. Okay, it didn't ask me any questions. If it's like the first time, it might ask you questions like, do you trust this host? And things like that. Here's the fingerprint of your host and something like that. Because it just kind of wants to make sure that you haven't been hijacked by some fake server pretending to be GitHub, and then you're showing your key, and then they go, we stole your key, and now they go to the actual GitHub. There's like these different kinds of hacks and things like that. But anyway, I've done git push, and so now if I come back to the website over here and I refresh the page, okay, those changes that I typed in now appear on the GitHub, on my GitHub repository. Okay, and so that's happened. Now, let's say you want, I don't know, you're working with somebody else, okay? and somebody else has access to the repository, right? You both added keys and permissions, and you've granted permission to someone else, or maybe you've worked on it on a different computer, right? So you have your home computer and you have your work computer. And so anyway, let's say there's new stuff. So I'm gonna like add a new file here. Okay, so this is just like this is a new file here. Okay, and let's we're gonna name this, and this we'll just call this new.txt, and I'm gonna go ahead and commit this change here. Okay, commit message created, create new.txt. Okay, yep, and I'm gonna just commit this directly, commit these changes. Okay, so now I now have another file here. Okay, and you can check the history of your commit, and so now we have 3 commits here. We have the initial commit, we have the modified readme, and we have create new.txt. Okay, so these are the different changes in time. Whoops. And if I check my own repository here, okay, I don't have new.txt. Okay, what I have to do is I have to pull any changes, and so this is, you should always get in the habit of always pulling changes to your repository. There's like, if there's no changes and you say git pull, it's just going to say, hey, there's nothing to update. Okay, but if you start making changes here, okay, now you start having branching timelines, right? It's kind of like in those sci-fi movies. You go back in time and one person goes off and does something else, and the other, and then now you have these branching timelines, and then there's like this, you have to kind of try to reconcile, and that can be a headache. So to kind of make sure everybody's working on the same timeline, you don't want to add like new commits to this thing. So we want to synchronize the timelines. So to kind of pull these changes, I'm going to call git pull. And this is going to download all of the changes from the repository here. So I'm going to type in git pull, and it says, okay, it's counting the object, compressing the objects, and says, okay, this is basically what we have. One file has changed. We added a new .txt thing, okay? And so now if I check it out here, now I have readme.md, new.txt. I can open up nano new.txt, and it says this is a new file. And then, you can do whatever, right? You can say, all right, let's add more stuff to this new file. Yay. Okay, so I'm gonna write that, and then I'm gonna exit. And then if I check git status, it's gonna say, hey, you modified the new file, so I'm gonna add that. So we're gonna add new, we're gonna commit that. There's a whole bunch of git commands, but 99% of the time, the commands you're gonna use will be git status, git add, git commit, okay? And then git pull and git push. So we're gonna commit these things. Okay, so modified new.txt. Okay, and then we will push these changes. All right, and then so now I'm gonna push from my local thing up to here. If I refresh, okay, it's gonna say, oh yeah, new.txt was just modified just now. I can click new.txt. Whoops. And you can see it's got the new stuff I added here. Okay. And then yeah, you can kind of check all of these commits, and you can kind of see, click any of these things, and it will tell you like, oh, this is basically what was added. Okay. When we created new.txt, this was what was added here, and things like that. Okay. So that's a very, very brief introduction. So this talks about the process. You make your changes, add, you commit, and you push them. And then if there's changes to the remote repository, you pull them. Okay, and this goes to your local repository. Okay, I will, I guess in our next class, I'll talk about this art class repository and how you can get it, how you can kind of clone mine. It requires what we call an upstream repository. And that way I'm going to be publishing all of my notes and stuff to GitHub, and then you'll be able to kind of pull all of the notes just by typing git pull and whatnot. Okay, let me give you your last view quiz answer for today, which is the letter A. A as an apple. A as an apple. Okay, we'll wrap things up here, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.